gotta do what I gotta do.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the MMA Rundown. My name is Ben Gordon. I'll be hosting again. This week was a bit of a down week for MMA. Last week we had a lot of events. We had the UFC going on, World Series of Fighting had an event. There was a big boxing match with Gennady Golovkin, NCAA wrestling tournament, IBJJF Pans. This week, not so much. The only real notable events of the week were the Glory World Series fight on Saturday, which had Sidichai on it as far as big names go there, and then they had the Tanya Evinger championship fight on Invicta. But again, neither of those events really drew a whole ton of interest, and as far as the show goes, I'm not really going to cover either of them. To me, the biggest story of the week was Bellator 180 being announced. So this is their return to pay-per-view, their first pay-per-view under Scott Coker. They announced it this week, and a lot of big names came up on it. So the main event that they're going to be having is Chael Sonnen versus Wanderlei Silva. This fight, of course, was supposed to happen in the UFC. They had filmed the season of The Ultimate Fighter leading up to it. Both had different issues with, it wasn't USADA at the time, I think it was the Nevada State Athletic Commission, with Wanderlei running away from a drug test, and then Chael obviously popping for a handful of different things on his. So that fight never happened, and obviously Chael never fought for the UFC again after that. So this will be the chance for them to finally settle their grudge in the cage. I don't know that Spike TV is really going to be able to go back to any of that footage, because it wasn't from the Spike days of The Ultimate Fighter. I don't even know if they have the rights to it anyway. So it looks like they're probably going to have to start from scratch on this, which is a little bit unfortunate. You'd like for them to be able to use all that footage that they had back from the UFC. But again, for the hardcore fans who know what's going on, it's going to be an interesting fight. Obviously, it's not going to be the same as it was back then. It doesn't have any kind of implication on where they stand among the best in the light heavyweight division in the world, or the middleweight division in the world, or wherever they contested. I think that this one would be at light heavyweight. Their first fight, I believe, was set for middleweight, but again, that's not really all that important now. Co-main event is going to be the rebooking of Fedor versus Mitrione. Hopefully, if anything happens to Mitrione, that either Chael or Wanderlei is able to step in, and that's the fight that gets broken up instead of the Fedor fight, so at least we get to see Fedor fight this time. But again, that fight, it's a big name fight. Hopefully that's going to help draw in some viewers to them, but it's not exactly the most competitive fight. It's not like it's going to tell you a whole lot about who the best heavyweights in the world are. But with the two final fights being fights that have bigger names and bigger drawing power, what I like that they're doing is the next two fights in the card are fights featuring guys who actually are towards the top of their division in the world and some of the best fighters in the world. So the next fight on the card, I believe the order will have Lima versus Lorenz Larkin. So Douglas Lima, their champion, just defeated Andrei Koreshkov, who was coming off a win over Ben Henderson. He's excellent at welterweight. I think he'd probably be making it in the top 15 pretty easily in the UFC if he were there. He'll be fighting against Lorenz Larkin, who was in the top 15, had a great win over Neil Magny, who I believe is in the top 8 right now of the UFC. So, very legitimate guy. Obviously, he was a very exciting fighter to watch. Great striker. He's getting a lot better with his grappling. Still not exactly that offensive with his grappling, but his grappling is getting to the point where it's defensive enough where he can show off that striking game, and the striking game is fantastic. So it'll be a good opportunity for him. I think on the feet, it's not like I don't think he's going to blow Lima away, but it can be a very fun fight regardless. And then the next fight will be Michael Chandler versus Brent Primus. Chandler, of course, coming off a win over Ben Henderson. He's a guy who also has wins over Eddie Alvarez, so we know where he stands in the lightweight division. It's going to be fun to see him compete again. And Primus, I wouldn't expect much out of him, but you never know. It's MMA. Anything can happen. I don't know that they're going to just have a four fight main card. They're probably going to add something on later. Obviously, they've got a lot of events coming up soon. I don't know if they're waiting to see how Michael Page comes out of his fight or any of those other guys who they'd like to put in, but it looks like a really good card. And to be honest, if this was under the UFC name, this is a great pay-per-view. I think fight for fight, this is actually a very good card. The problem for them is the UFC is very experienced in the pay-per-view game, and they've kind of got the brand behind them, whereas Bellator doesn't have that. So for me, what's going to be tough is that I usually don't buy pay-per-views at home. I usually go to bars, and I don't know how many bars are actually going to have this pay-per-view. Anytime there's a UFC event, there's most of the bars in town. You're probably going to be able to find it there and be able to watch it there. Bellator is going to need to figure out their distribution on that and make sure that that's available to them, because if they don't, it's going to take a great event and it's going to make it have lower numbers than it probably should. So hopefully it's available there, and hopefully they put some other good guys on the card. Obviously, another name that we've heard that's going to be on the card is Aaron Pico. Now, the prelims of that event is going to be on Spike. It sounds as though Pico will probably be on Spike. it'll be interesting to see how he does. Obviously, we've seen him just in pure wrestling. He got to the finals against Frank Molinaro in the U.S. Olympic trials in 2016. Split matches with him and then lost in the final match. Molinaro made the Olympic team after losing one match to Pico but winning two, and then obviously finished in the top 5 in the Olympics. So Pico is a world-class wrestler. Definitely going to be great on that side. It sounds like he's a pretty good boxer in the gym. There were rumors that when Josh Thompson was out with a concussion for a while, it's because he was sparring with Aaron Pico and Pico caught him. So it'll be interesting to see where Pico's striking is at. Unless you've been in the gym, you really don't know where it's at. So it'll be good to see his striking in an MMA environment. It'll be good to see that after he gets a takedown, what does he look like on top? Does he just kind of have like that wrestler mentality where he just kind of hangs on to you and beats you up? Does he have really good guard passing? Does he have good submissions? What's he going to do once he gets there? But everything sounds as though he's going to be one of the top prospects to watch. Sounds like he's already very good at other aspects other than just wrestling, and I'm excited to see him compete, and I'm excited to see who they put him against. I don't know if they're going to go against a no-name guy or if they're going to go against someone who's a bit of a veteran, but either way, can't wait to see him fight. Can't wait to see really this main card. Hopefully it sticks together because this is an excellent card. It's a lot better than the UFC 208 card. UFC's 211 card is better than this, but there have been a lot of UFC cards recently that haven't been as good as this card is. This card has 2 championship fights. It's got 2 big name fights on the top of it. It's just going to be a question of how can Bellator handle the pay-per-view side. UFC is very experienced in this, and that's how they're able to do pretty well with it. But Bellator, again, their distribution is going to be questionable. Not sure how well they're going to promote it. People aren't used to expecting a Bellator event on a Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm looking forward to it right now.